the concept of presumption of conformity basically means that in order to comply with the requirements set by a certain regulation, you have to make sure that the product complies with applicable designated standards. Okay, so designated standard is essentially a key to comply with the regulation under which the standard is designated. I think that's the best way I can explain it. And the reason for this is that, let's say you have a regulation like the toy safety regulation. Let's say that you're selling toys, and you have come to the conclusion that you must comply with the toys safety regulation 2011. Well, the issue, if I can use that term, is that you will not actually find a complete list of technical specifications and other safety criteria that you must fulfill for your toy product. The regulation itself is essentially saying that all toys sold in the UK must be safe, but doesn't provide a practical roadmap for how this is to be achieved. And this is, of course, not just the case for toys, but also when it comes to other products requiring UKCA marking, like electronics, PP, medical devices, and so on. So in short, the regulation provides us with the overall, the high-level requirements, and also documentation, labeling requirements, and so on. But when it comes to what I must do, let's say on the drawing board, to make sure that my product is designed in a safe way, it doesn't contain certain substances, well, then I have to look at designated standards. Okay, so in this context, a toy which conforms with designated standards shall be presumed to comply with the essential safety requirements of this regulation. And this terminology can be found in most other UKCA regulations. So what's next? Well, we have to find designated standards. That's what we have to do now. So luckily on the UK.gov website, you'll find a guidance document, a web page listing designated standards, or links to designated standards. Just have to scroll down a bit. Now, in the context of UKCA marking, there's more than one regulation mandating UKCA marking, and what they've done here is to essentially list designated standards separately, depending on the regulation under which they are designated. Okay, so you can see here electric and electronic engineering, EMC, low voltage. So let's say you have determined that these two apply, that these two regulations apply. Well, then you would have to look at the list on the EMC page and also the low voltage equipment page. Okay, so what I'm getting to is that you may have to consider more than one list. Now, if we stick to the toy example, I should go to the toy safety page. And what I must do now is to download the latest version of designated standards concerning toy safety. As you can see, there are different versions, and the reason is that new standards can be designated, and new versions of existing designated standards can be adjusted, meaning that a new version can be added and eventually replace older versions. So it's important that you pick the latest one, which I will do right now. And what have we here? We have a 4-page PDF. A 4-page PDF listing standards published and designated toy standards. And next, I must identify the standards, the designated standards that could potentially apply to my product. And in the context of toys, well, I would likely have to go with this one. Part 1, mechanical and physical properties. This standard, EN 71-1, provides you with technical specifications for, let's say, how to design a toy in a way that is safe, that it doesn't have small parts that can be broken off, or maybe sharp edges or something like that. Okay, so I would need to access this standard, which I can do through the BSI website, but I have to buy it. But in any case, by accessing this standard, I can then implement this into my design drawings. Then we have flammability. That's part 2. It sets flammability parameters, and I will need to arrange testing to make sure that my product is compliant. Nonetheless, I need to comply with this one as well, most likely. And then we have 3, which sets restrictions for elements, meaning chemicals and heavy metals. What you see here is that you have it's not necessarily a matter of identifying a single standard or a single part. More than one can apply to the same product, which is very often the case. And when it comes to toys, very common scenario that you have to comply with part 1, 2, and 3 at the same time because they cover different aspects. And it can be the same for PPE, electronics, and so on. So some of these, they cover certain aspects, like mechanical safety or substances, as I mentioned. Other standards, they are more product specific, say for finger paints or activity toys. Okay? Trampolines, electrical toys. Now, your job is to identify those that could apply to your product and then implement them. That's really what this comes down to. Okay, so just to repeat, in most UKCA regulations, you will find a section titled Presumption of Conformity, and presumption of conformity is essentially the concept that in order to comply with a regulation, you have to make sure your product is designed to comply with a designated standard. And you can find lists of designated standards if you go to this page on the gov.uk website, and you then can identify the specific list by accessing these pages. You may have to pick more than one. You go here, you download the latest version, and then you do your very best to identify the standard or the standards that may apply to your product. And if you cannot find anything, then you can also go to a testing company and ask them to help assess standards that could apply to your product. That's also an option.